What's up, dudes? Max here, and today was the final day of the Injustice 2 beta. My biggest apologies to anyone that did not get a code. I know there was several people that did not end up getting codes that did sign up and were eagerly awaiting. That really does suck, especially for an anticipated game, so I can only hope to give you guys my impressions based on what I played and what I hope can be changed and kind of what happened. The biggest thing with Injustice 2, like I was saying compared to the first Injustice, is that a lot of similarities do take place. I actually would play the first Injustice in training mode to try to practice the combos for like Batman and Superman, because the majority of that stuff did act fairly similar. However, with the character I ended up liking the most, Batman, he's kind of a more heavily nerfed version over his Injustice 1 counterpart, and he wasn't even that good in Injustice 1 in the long run. I actually got a lot better with the character by identifying some players that are really good with him, like Forever King, who was one of the best Batman players in the first Injustice game, and he's also really good in Injustice 2 and plays a great Batman, and I learned some very good tricks that actually allowed me to have a lot of fun with him. So in the end of playing this giant beta that has been going on for almost a month, the character I like playing the most so far was Batman. And in the very end of things, I thought it would be Atrocitus, I thought it would be something like Blue Beetle, and I'll tell you guys my impressions of everyone. Superman is one of the most easy to learn characters in the game right now. I would not be surprised if they make some adjustments. His forward 2-3 is going to probably start as a high when the game does eventually come out, because as of right now, he feels like pre-nerfed Superman from the first Injustice game. If we want to talk about some of the other characters, Atrocitus is a very good character to get used to Injustice, because he has some very powerful strings, he does great damage, but he's kind of lumbering and slow. However, Atrocitus, while he is very fun in the first day or so you are learning him, I found him to be kind of really basic, and you kind of do the same exact few things over and over again. The kind of interesting thing about Batman is that it's all about converting. It's about converting really critical damage from these points all over the place. Whether if not you have one little bat trait around you or all three, you have these little setups that go throughout an entire match that can either make moves safe or allow you to convert combo damage from them, which is really cool. It makes every match with Batman feel kind of a bit different. I didn't play a lot of Supergirl simply because so many people were playing her. Of all the characters that are in this early beta, there was probably one that is unanimously agreed as being the best, and it was Supergirl. She is a mixed character, meaning that she's going to finish her combos and then put you into a situation where you essentially have to guess where she's coming from. She has a really clever box dash that goes right above you and kind of lands in the middle of your character for a cross-up, and you have to make a guess whether or not it's a cross-up or not, it feels like. I think I was kind of getting better at identifying whether or not it was going to be a cross-up, so it started getting a little bit easier, but her buttons were just freaking amazing. She has this crouching, what looks to be a low forward button, and she can make things safe with her EX breath. This chick was just really damn good, and some of the best zoning in the game, because her trait, which is her eye lasers, charges really damn fast, or you could exhaust it for a giant beam that goes across the screen. Supergirl was just really damn good, and I'm curious to see what other changes they're going to make to her, because she was already changed quite a bit in the second wave that did happen. The other characters that were added were Blue Beetle as well as Black Canary, and Black Canary, while it does feel like she is kind of a really interesting character in terms of rushdown, can make herself kind of unsafe in some situations. You have to use meter for that, and a lot of Black Canary, what it ends up being is sitting on your trait and then waiting for someone to move from full screen, because her trait acts as a giant projectile from full screen that stuns you. She runs in and does a full combo, and a lot of Black Canaries you will see don't do a lot of offense. They just sit from a big distance and wait for that trait to fill up, and then use an opportunity where you're kind of locked down and you can't move, and they press one button to do a big damage combo. I really didn't like that. Like, it's something about the character that I see and I identify that it is really good, but to me it wasn't super interesting. You're not being proactive and you're just kind of being reactive about what's going on. Blue Beetle I really wanted to like, but the most effective way of being really good with the character is to be pesky, is to identify where the people want to attack you from and hover and float and go into his flight cancels in the air and be as pesky and hard to hit as possible, because he's a tough character to hit. He's a tough character to fight against, and you feel like you're going to constantly be chasing many blue beetles down, even in his second stance. And his second stance, he'll change on the fly. And I do hope that at some point that stance you can actually cancel into a little bit easier, because I really enjoy the second stance of Blue Beetle, the one with the claws. So I'm very anxious to see what they do with that character, because he can be a lot of fun. He is a low damage output character, and you have to spend a lot of meter to actually get that good damage. On top of that, the other mechanics that are present in the game that are different from Injustice 1, which is the meter burn roll, as well as the 2-bar tech out, where if you're in a state that's in the air while being juggled, you can actually pop up or back out of it for the cost of 2 bars. It's a sort of way of wagering in the first and second round without actually using your wager, and this mechanic is really cool. Some people won't see it worth it, but I used it a lot, and was able to punish people while teching out and then recovering on the ground fast enough while they're continuing to go for the combo. You have to reconsider which combo you're going to do if the opponent does have 2 bars to spend to get out of it, and most of the players that got really good at Injustice 2 now do different combos that specifically keep the opposition on the ground and not in a juggled state to get the most damage possible, which I think is a really interesting dynamic for the game. The meter burn roll can also be very good and utilized well, especially with something like Batman's trait, where you dash forward with the meter burn roll and then call the bats of your trait in right after it. Really, really fun mix-ups that get associated with that stuff, and I really like it. So, those 2 mechanics are really good, but they do cost bar, but you get a lot of bar in this game. Now, from this point forward, I'm going to be a little bit critical about the game, because I have learned to like Injustice 2, but there were some things that I made impressions of early on that were a bit cumbersome, getting used to the delay of certain attacks and how you jump in, how you have to kind of buffer in that attack string very early in order for it to come out. That has taken some time, and I'm still not fully adjusted to that stuff yet, but I'm pretty sure that was there in Injustice 1, so it makes sense why it's there in Injustice 2. It's just one of those things I really hope they would have changed. The other thing is supers. Supers do about 25% damage right now, and they are piss poor. For how cool they look, I find that really unfortunate, because you do get a lot of bar in this game. I would like to have some more incentives to use supers, and I would also hope that maybe they could not be as harshly scaled in combos. Maybe, just maybe, if you combo into your full 4-bar super, you could possibly have it scale relatively less than most other stuff, because you're spending all your freaking meter on that, and that stuff is good for wagers and tech outs and rolls, etc., etc. I would love to see supers utilized a little bit better in NetherRealm games, because for the greater 90% of a situation where you have all that bar actually available, using a super to get that much damage is really not worth it. Now, last but not least, the biggest topic of this video is the thing that I would love to see addressed with Injustice 2 that actually has me a bit worried, and it feels like a complete waste. We all know about the gear system and the gigantic changes it can make to the game with stat boosting, attack boosting, defense, everything like that. We've played it online, and you run into people that will leave their gear on because you didn't get an option in this beta. Both players had to agree to turn it off, and sometimes you run into people that just didn't want to do that. However, when the game does come out, it's going to have a ranked mode where it's going to be turned off, and all the gear and everything associated with it will be not available, so you don't have to deal with all that crazy stuff and having to do 6 times as many combos to kill your opposition. But there's the problem. The gear system right now is attached to possibly one of the most interesting things about Injustice 2's mechanics, and that is the new abilities. Injustice 2 gets all these new abilities for characters that are brand new special moves and modifiers of current special moves. Kind of think of it as Mortal Kombat X's variation system, how you got different special moves per variation and other minor changes for the character. These moves, while they don't seem really broken or imbalanced, can actually change the way a character plays dramatically, and especially if you can see what your opposition has early on in terms of their abilities, like you can easily identify it. I would love to see these things actually utilized in ranked matches in some way, because this could make Injustice 2 really fun. The problem is they're attached to your gear system right now, so when you are in the options menu before a match starts to turn all the gear stuff off and all that stat boosting stuff, well, there goes the new abilities as well. All those unique special moves that they made for these characters also gets thrown out, and you're stuck with the bare bones, regular competitive version of that character, and I think that's kind of a waste. I would love to see these moves utilized in some way. Like I said, let both players know who's using what on each side, but this should actually be implemented into the core game. Let players choose what special moves they want to use and leave it up to the developers to properly balance and give reasons to use those special moves over the others and have to make a choice between them. That's ultimately what the variation system was in Mortal Kombat X, making a sacrifice to get one thing over the other, and Injustice 2 is missing that because all this stuff gets turned off as soon as you turn off all the gear. This is something that I personally think and hope that NetherRealm does something about in the final game, which is to make a choice whether or not these abilities should be a part of the base gameplay or have it be like it is now, a part of a gear system whose stats and other crazy modifiers essentially nerf the crap out of it being competitively viable. Many people that follow an assortment of fighting games might have actually already come across something very similar to this, and it's not in any NetherRealm games, it's not in Street Fighters, it's not in anime games. Smash Bros. 4 has had unique special moves for all the characters in the game that you can unlock, but because they're not built into the core game, they are turned off by default when it comes to ranked matches and competitive gameplay, and that's exactly what's going on with these ability special moves in Injustice 2. The other issue is a level playing field when it comes to these abilities, because I wasn't even able to learn them for the characters I had in the beta, and that was only like 6 characters. I was still missing several, and until the very final day was still learning some, which further solidifies my argument to NetherRealm that hopefully this stuff will not be attached to gear. The abilities should not be something that you have to keep playing the game to unlock, like the stat boosting gear. It should be a part of the core game in Injustice 2. In a way, it's like choosing an assist for a character, like in a Marvel vs. Capcom game, but you're modifying your character with what different special moves they can use. That seems really awesome, but you never saw it because most people played competitive, and most people just used the base character stuff, and all the combos kind of look very similar. So that's about it. The game can be a lot of fun, and I didn't even mention the netcode because it got drastically better after the first wave, and the net play is really good now outside of people that just have notoriously bad connections. It runs smooth, it's feeling just as good as Mortal Kombat X, which is fantastic, so everything is lining up and it's sounding really awesome. So that's going to be very good news for you guys coming in May, because we still don't even know what the majority of the roster is going to be, as well as the other things like story mode and other modes and online, and how are they going to eventually implement this ability system? Are they going to leave it as a throwaway gear-related aspect, or are they going to build it into the core game, which is what I ultimately hope for. As always, dudes, thank you a ton for watching. I'll be back with more Injustice 2 gameplay, as I still have a lot from the betas, showing off character costumes and everything like that, and for the most part, playing usually in competitive matches where that stuff is all cosmetic. As always, dudes, thank you a ton for watching. I'd appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel, as I'll be doing continuous updates on Injustice 2, as well as the huge variety of fighting games that are coming out this year. My name is Max, and I'll see you next time.
Batman wins.